Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Do new Muslims need to make up missed prayers after converting? Do new Muslims need to make up missed prayers after converting? So, firstly, I want to address the issue of the title, New Muslims. There has been many discussions among scholars about what to exactly call people who embrace Islam. And initially, everyone would use converts. And then eventually people used reverts, because you don't convert to Islam. You were born a Muslim, so you revert back to being a Muslim if you so left the religion, or if you were raised according to a different religion. And then what I found to be another term, commonly used is the one here in the question, new Muslims. At which point does a new Muslim no longer have the title of a new Muslim? So I'm mentioning this because I found that among new Muslims, there's this idea that these titles tend to sometimes be negative towards them. They feel inferior about it, and they feel as though they've been categorized in a certain way. And this is, of course, a legitimate feeling. If somebody feels this way, we should respect that. This isn't a title given to them by Islam. This isn't a title that we find in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, specifically to call them a new Muslim per se. But what they do find appealing is the idea of embracing Islam. When somebody embraces Islam, they actually willingly go through a thought process of accepting Islam in their lives and making Islam a part of who they are. And the reality is that some people who are born Muslim, they don't actually get to the point where they also embrace Islam. So if somebody is a Muslim for 10 years or 20 years, do we still refer to them as a new Muslim? They would prefer that we call them people who had embraced Islam. But if we need to refer to a specific context of people who had embraced Islam recently, then of course new Muslims would be fine. The question itself is straightforward. Do new Muslims need to make up missed prayers after converting? And the answer is no, they do not need to make up missed prayers after converting. The Prophet ﷺ, he informed us that al-Islamu yahdimu ma kana qablahu. And this is narrated by Imam Muslim. Islam completely wipes out whatever had occurred before that. And there are verses in the Quran to espouse this as well. When one embraces Islam, anything and everything that they did before that moment will no longer count against them in the Akhirah. They are starting a brand new leaf. In other religions, this is called born again. For Islam, this is your beginning. This is not born again. This is you are born for the first time. You have an opportunity to really, keep your slate clean. Some of the Sahaba in certain narrations, when they expressed themselves in a certain way that wasn't the best, or they did an action, or the Prophet ﷺ, he rebuked them in a way that made them feel it. They would say that they wished that they had embraced Islam on that day. Why did they say this? They said this because they felt as though they needed to wipe away whatever just happened at that moment. So new Muslims don't need to make up for past mistakes. They don't need to pay in any debts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that be Ramadan, fasting, whether that be zakah, whether that be prayer. All of that is completely wiped away, and they start off from that moment. However, it is important that people who embrace Islam, they should be prepared to immediately commence with performing salah as soon as they embrace Islam. And while this is an obligation, it's also important that those who support them, or those who introduce them to Islam and invite them to Islam and assist them with the process of embracing Islam, that they prep them in such a way that it does not become overwhelming. Because if you tell somebody who just embraces Islam, right now you have to wake up for Fajr tomorrow morning, you have to pray 5 times a day, you have to do wudu, and give them all of the obligations of Islam in one go, this is counterproductive. Instead, what we should do is make sure that they understand the basics of Islam, the 5 pillars, just what they are, and the fact that salah is now an obligation upon them, and that they can start off by joining a jama'ah, even if they don't know what to recite, and they simply follow the actions and immediately start the process of learning. That's the key. Once they start the process of learning, then they gradually implement that which they learn. And it is important that the class that they take, right, the course that they start with, prioritizes the knowledge that is considered fard or obligatory, and the acts that are obligatory in Islam first. As an example, it would be counterintuitive and counterproductive for a person who just embraces Islam to start learning about technical matters within, for example, usulul fiqh or ulumul hadith or ulumul Quran, or even in fiqh itself, but at a level that is beyond their reach. They should start off with the bare essentials, the way a child would be taught. That is the approach for new Muslims, for people who just embrace Islam. And special consideration should be given to this in every community where Muslims are found, so that when people embrace Islam, their journey is made easy for them and we facilitate matters for them. So there should be a special class for people who had just embraced Islam. There are so many different benefits to this. Other than the fact that it is aimed at their level, it also provides them with a social support group of other Muslims who had recently embraced Islam, because they face similar challenges and they face similar difficulties within their lives, and they are able to draw strength from one another when they find these challenges and these difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah.